distinguished guests, Prime Minister of the Republic of Cabo Verde, His Excellency José Ulisses Correia de Silva, Ambassador of Cabo Verde to the United States, the Honorable José Luis do Livramento Monteiro, the Ambassador of Portugal to the United States, the Honorable Francisco Duarte Lopes, the Cabo Verde Consul General in Boston, Mr. Octavio Gomes, Tiago Arajo, Portuguese Consul General in Boston, a BU Met College graduate and alumni, Harold Tavares, Executive Director of the Africa Group at the World Bank, members of the Cabo Verdean community here in Boston, welcome to Boston University. To our own president, Dr. Melissa Gilliam, and other BU colleagues and senior administration officials present, Boston University students, faculty, and staff, thank you all so much for being here this morning and for helping to welcome our distinguished guest, Prime Minister Correia Silva, to Boston and to our BU community. My name is Scott Taylor. I have the pleasure of serving as the Dean of the Pardee School of Global Studies. And we gather here today under the aegis of 3 of our BU institutions that have made this event possible. The first is the school that I'm privileged to represent, the Frederick S. Pardee School of Global Studies, which prepares the next generation of global leaders to tackle the most pressing issues facing humanity. The school brings together faculty, students, staff from across disciplines and across the university to advance human progress and improve the global condition. No small task, but through a strong commitment to teaching, research, and intellectual and global engagement. Second, the Global Development Policy Center, which is a university-wide policy-oriented research center that advances financial stability, human well-being, and environmental sustainability through its work. Through that work, the center seeks to bridge the worlds of academia and policy to generate solutions for a more equitable and sustainable global future. Finally, the African Studies Center, one of the nation's oldest programs in African language and Africa research on Africa since its founding in 1953, has more than 110 affiliated faculty across 17 departments at Boston University, and it is recognized indeed as a global leader in African studies research and education. Each of these units brings a unique perspective and expertise, yet all are united by a common mission: to advance peace, enable sustainable development, and promote transformative knowledge to address the world's most pressing challenges. Together, we are bound by a commitment to interdisciplinarity and convergent research, and by the commitment and conviction that universities like BU play a vital role in shaping solutions with a global impact. It is fitting, therefore, that the next speaker from whom you will hear is our university's leader, President Melissa Gilliam. Boston University's 11th president, Dr. Gilliam is an esteemed and award-winning interdisciplinary scholar whose impactful work and career span the fields of medicine, public health, and the humanities. Indeed, she embodies the spirit of convergence across disciplines. That is a word we hear a lot at BU today and really try to instill in our identity. And this convergence that is increasingly at the heart of the Boston University intellectual identity and our approach to teaching, research, and engagement. We are privileged to have President Gilliam leading this community, how we educate, how we collaborate, and how we prepare globally aware citizens to meet the challenges of tomorrow. So it's my honor to welcome to introduce the Boston University President, Dr. Melissa Gilliam.
Thank you so much, Dean Taylor. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. It's wonderful to see you. I join Dean Taylor in welcoming our many esteemed guests and it is just a delight to have you here with us today. Today's event is called Small Island States in an Uncertain Global Economy, a conversation with the Prime Minister of Cabo Verde. And I have the privilege of welcoming you all on behalf of Boston University and echo Dean Taylor's welcome and and uplifting of the Global Development Policy Center, the Pardee School of Global Studies, and the BU African Studies Center. It gives you an example of how this is what Boston University does. We are a place for convening, and the GDP's mission of convening thoughtful dialogue on global development. Boston University has a commitment to better understanding our world and connecting with individuals across the globe. And we're so excited, Prime Minister, that you will deliver the keynote. And I very much look forward to your words. We actually have in Massachusetts and at the university a very strong uh, bond to Cabo Verde. As you know, the city of Boston, the state of Massachusetts, we are home to the largest Cabo Verdean community in the United States. And I have learned that Brockton, Massachusetts is referred to as the 11th island. Boston and Praia, Cabo Verde signed a sister agreement in 2015. We have many connections to Boston University as well. Many prominent Cabo Verdeans have attended Boston University, like our own Harold Tavares, who is now the executive director for Cabo Verde and 22 other African countries at the World Bank. Here. But also, BU has an active Cabo Verdean student association. So you should know that you're well represented here. Prime Minister, we are so honored to welcome you. This is a very, very special time, and we are honored that you are here with us today. The island is celebrating 50 years of independence. It's a wonderful, wonderful achievement. But you've also made tremendous progress towards the sustainable development in recent years. Last year, your country was declared malaria free. This year, Cabo Verde reached the status of an upper middle income country. You also have vibrant cultural industries and have become a popular destination for international tourists. These are many, many successes, and I congratulate you on them. And earlier today, I was just enjoy to hear about your commitment to sustainability and how much progress you have made. So I congratulate you and your community on your successes and look forward to hearing from you. Um, and next, we will hear from Kevin Gallagher, who will introduce the Prime Minister.
Thank you, President Gilliam. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your leadership and the warm welcome to the Prime Minister. I welcome all of you as well. My name's Kevin Gallagher. I direct the Global Development Policy Center, or the GDP Center, as we like to call ourselves. As Dean Taylor mentioned, our mission is to advance policy-oriented research on financial stability, human well-being, and environmental sustainability across the globe. Before I go further, please allow me to welcome our distinguished guests, President Gilliam, Dean Scott Taylor, Nimi Weraboko, Director of the BU African Studies Center that we're co-sponsoring this with. Obviously, members of the Cape Verdean community here, BU alumni, faculty, and staff. Your presence today reflects the spirit of partnership, of exchange, and of community that we try to foster at BU in general and the Global Development Policy Center in particular. And in fact, one of the key pillars of the GDP Center is to try to foster a global development community here at Boston University that engages with each other, but also engages with people across the world, both in the boundaries of BU, but as we move across the world. One of the ways that we do this is something called the Paul Streeton Distinguished Lectureship that we have each year. We do that with the Economics Department and the Institute of Economic Development over there. And we've honored people who are distinguished scholars who have made major impacts in the policy world. We've had Nobel Prize winning economist Joseph Stiglitz, who went on to be the chief economist of the World Bank. We had Rohini Panda, Ann Harrison, and on October 23rd, we'll have Michael Greenstone. Michael Greenstone is an economist at the University of Chicago and served in the Obama administration in doing significant amount of work on the economics of climate change in developing countries. But today's event inaugurates a new lecture series for us. We thought we shouldn't just have academics who have made major policy contributions, that we should also have a lecture series that brings in major global leaders who come to the university and to tell us about things that we need to grapple with, things that we need to stare at the blackboard about, and things that we need to have conversations with us amongst ourselves and then back out with the larger community. As a policy center, we don't stop after we publish an article in Science or Nature, or the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, or the Quarterly Journal of Economics. Our charter actually charges us to engage on what the policy implications of that might be. We see it as our responsibility after we've done and are grounded in that peer-reviewed academic work to go out and engage on the policy implications of our work. And through some of this work, that's how we met Harold Tavares. He's a BU alum, as President Gilliam said earlier. He serves as the executive director, which is another word for ambassador. That's how we refer to our ambassadors to these kinds of institutions, to the World Bank for the Africa Group, #2. We didn't know of his Boston or his BU institutional associations until we went to brief him in his office one day, and we saw this big, huge jersey of Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics. And I said, I think we're going to get along with this guy. And that's when he shared, obviously we knew about the great community here, but we didn't know that you were a BU alum and had such a great affinity for BU and Boston and the world's greatest basketball team of all time. So welcome back to welcome back to BU. Welcome back to BU, Harold. I'm deeply honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Prime Minister José Ulisses Correia y Silva. Prime Minister Correia has guided Cabo Verde since 2016 after a distinguished career as a mayor and as the Minister of Finance, which he said he was a more difficult job, as we were talking about earlier. Under his leadership, as President Gilliam said, his country has now graduated into upper middle income status. He's eradicated malaria, set ambitious renewable energy goals, and has really positioned his country to be a bridge between Africa, the Americas, and Europe. At the same time, he's overseen unprecedented economic growth. He's strengthened democracy in his country and expanded opportunities for people in his country, not only on its island, but in its diaspora and the other island in Brockton, Massachusetts. And yet, as Prime Minister himself often emphasizes, small island developing states remain on the front lines of climate change and economic vulnerability, and about how to make global economic governance a bigger system, a better system, and a more inclusive system. In that spirit, I'm deeply privileged to have Prime Minister with us today to deliver a talk called Small Island States in an Uncertain Global Economy. So without further delay, please join me in welcoming His Excellency, Prime Minister of the Republic of Cabo Verde, José Ulisses Correia y Silva. Thank you very much. Help me welcome him.
Good morning, President Melissa, Gilliam, Director Kevin Gallagher. I'd like to recognize our ambassador, Cape Verde ambassador in Washington, Consulate General. I'd like to recognize Senator Lisa Miranda, Cape Verdean descendant, John Barros, and other Cape Verdeans here present. I'd like to thank you, President Melissa, for the invitation to us to have a short conversation about important things like our position as a small island in development state in this world, very complicated and very turbulent in this moment. I'd like to thank you for this invitation because we are in Boston University. And in Boston, we have our largest Canadian community in Massachusetts. Our immigration to the United States begins in the 18th century. And we grow in this country. Most of the Cape Verdean are American. And American Cape Verdean, they contribute to the country in terms of economy, in terms of knowledge. And we are very interested to continue with this good relationship. I'd like to recognize the students and thank you for coming. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And from now, I will continue my presentation in Portuguese. It's a very nice language too. Pequenos estados insulares.
Small island developing states in an uncertain global economy is a theme that we feel the world is oriented towards large territories and populations. And when you're small, you have to distinguish yourself to appear. That's how it works in countries on continents, in the African continent. Cape Verde is part of the African continent, and it's work that we must do constantly to appear to the millions of our population and our territory, to make a difference in Cape Verde and in the small island developing nations, which are islands, but we must appear for the continental nations. This is a great challenge to be a felt presence, to have a voice, and especially in their existence as islands, archipelagos with small populations, fragmented populations, small markets, but which need an economy, need development. That's why when the global economy is turbulent and uncertain, the smaller countries suffer greater effects of these shocks. The world situation we have today is full of wars and armed conflicts, humanitarian crises, expansion of populism and extremism. And when these become heavier issues, they tend to focus or be less present the issues which are essential for our small countries. We have the climate actions, we have global warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius. We must protect the ocean. These are essential issues for small developing island nations and for the whole world. But when the world has turbulence associated with war and conflict and crises, they tend to focus attention on these essential issues. And that's why the UN General Assembly, at the international forums, we must always pay attention and put on the table and in the attention of the world these issues which are essential for the small island developing nations. Climate action must be always kept in front of people's attention. These require global commitments. Today, no country, large or small, can resolve climate impact questions by themselves. Not even the United States, not even any other country, not Africa alone either. That's why the commitment is global. And it's global, and the commitment is one which should be the main responsibility of those countries that mainly contribute to questions like global warming and carbon emissions and the rise of the level of the oceans. Those are the most industrialized countries, the larger countries in terms of production of carbon. They should assume the main global responsibility because they export these global crises to other countries. We must reach the objectives of sustainable development, the wealthy countries. We have poor countries and we have very poor countries. And in order to live together in this world in a more balanced way, the responsibility is global to reach our climate objectives, to create conditions so that people can live with dignity and eliminate extreme poverty and create conditions for people to have the ability to progress in their lives. And of course, the uncertainties in the economic relations between countries and the globalization that we have today in the world. Normally, these are reflections of global crises. We lived this during the pandemic, the COVID-19. All of the countries together suffered the impact, but the more vulnerable countries suffered more heavily the impact. It was a global impact that had an even stronger effect on countries of greater vulnerability. We have had other crises, financial crises in 2007 and 8, which began locally in the United States, it reached Europe, and then it reached all the countries in the world. And these global impacts are those which we must be aware of, because the world is more and more connected. And of course, it affects behaviors of countries, of companies. It affects the behavior of companies, investors, consumers. The calculation of the return, the investment, it all becomes very uncertain, and it creates problems. For those who invest, they want to be confident about their investment and have a relationship with their citizens. In the environment we have today, there is certainly a lot of financial turbulence, which involves the world context that we have today. About Cape Verde, how do we position ourselves in this turbulent world? Being a small island developing state with an uncertain situation. First of all, our objective is to reduce the inflationary energy shocks and the climate shocks. We want to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. We import 80% of what we consume in energy and electricity. So our objective in 2026 is to have more than 35% of our own energy produced through renewable energy. In 2030, we want to reach more than 50%. In 2040, more than 80% production of renewable energy in our own country. And this objective is economic, social, and environmental all at the same time. Economic because we reduce our dependence on import of fossil fuels. Economic because we reduce the impact to external shocks, inflationary energy shocks. This happened in the beginning of the Ukraine war in 2022. Cape Verde had inflation for a few years, many years of 1% because of the energy shock. In 2022, caused by the Ukrainian war, it went up to 8%, 8 times higher. This inflationary shock was external with an impact on the country, in the life of people who consume, who invest in companies. So if we reduce this dependence, we reduce the impact of these external shocks. When we reach more than 50% of our own energy production from energy renewable in Cape Verde, the shock will be 50% less. We will be less exposed to the external shocks. And when we are producing 80% or more of our own energy through renewable sources, we have sun energy, wind, and ocean to produce our own energy. Another shock factor, and we must reduce our dependence. These are natural shocks because of extreme dryness. And this is something that we suffer from. We produce agriculture through desalinated water with hydric energy, and we want to massify this solution. If it doesn't come from the sky, it'll come from the ocean. We have a lot of ocean. We must transform the water in potable water, useful for consumption and for agriculture at low cost. And we have this experience and in development, and at the same time, we can increase the hydric efficiency for more sustainable use of the water. And we will also, when the rain doesn't come from the sky, we must have water for our agriculture, and then so we will massify the agricultural production abilities through water from another source, which we have in great abundance, which is the ocean. Another factor to reduce shock is to diversify the economy. Like most small island developing states, we have a strong dependence on tourism. 25% of our GDP comes from tourism. Most of our employment comes from tourism. It is diversified in all areas, and we are going to work to more and more have a blue economy, a digital economy with economic efficiency. We want more sectors contributing to growth, and our economic growth is one of the great challenges that Africa has. Africa has a low level of growth for a poor continent, and we need to get beyond this problem. We must double our economic growth, our potential. We must grow consistently over time at a double the rate. And this is our great challenge in the case of Cape Verde. We are introducing these sectors to contribute to more accelerated growth and diversification. Blue economy has great potential, digital economy with great potential, and all of these sectors will contribute to this growth. And last of all, we need to guarantee good partnerships and alliances externally based on trust and confidence. A small country must have partnerships. It has to have strong partnerships, and these partnerships are economic. They are for safety and security and integration. In the case of Cape Verde, we have a special partnership with the European Union, which has developed a wonderful economic partnership. 55% of our commerce is with Europe. 80% of our foreign investment comes from Europe. We are linked to the euro since 98, and tourism comes mainly from Europe. And for Cape Verde, Cape Verde is the second group, the greatest diaspora of Cape Verdeans are in Europe and the United States. It has to be developed, and we have space for development. No country can develop only among contacts with poor countries. We must have partnerships with wealthy countries as well to help our growth. And the second partnership is with United States, Brazil, and Europe. We have maritime security. We are a country with a location between the European continent, Europe, Brazil, United States. And United States has to do with drug trafficking. And no country can take care of security all by itself. Cape Verde has a huge exclusive economic zone. Our maritime area is the size of Texas. We are large in territory, including our maritime surfaces, and we can have the supervision of these oceans. We must take advantage of this ocean by having strong partnerships and alliances to protect this ocean against threats and problems that can come from transnational drug trafficking and trafficking in general. So our great priority is to have very strong partnerships for this security, and also our integration of the economic community of West African states, relative to which there has been, since its creation of the CEDEAO, we have dealt with several conflicts, working together through the creation of an economic space for the West African states, and our vision is to continue with that. This natural integration space is very good for our development. And in finishing, I would like to say quickly that we are a small island developing state. We are growing. We have to find our space for development. We are an open economy, the second most open and free economy in Africa. And among small countries, we have leadership and we have the ability to grow. And in terms of small countries, must not isolate their economies. They must be open because of very many issues. We have a small market and we must make it viable by looking outward, and we must have investment from abroad as well. We have to bring more investment to go together with our national investment. We must bring more technology to adapt and make it work and have our appropriate position in the world. And this is very important for all of the countries, and especially for the small countries like ours. That's why culturally we must be very open. We are the result of mixing and of diaspora. Cape Verdeans are present all over the world, and thank you very much. We will continue building in our future in the same way that we have been doing up until now. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vice President, I must thank you for that brilliant lecture and very informative, and how you've been able to transform your country. So we are very glad to hear that from you. My name is Nimi Warboko. I'm the director of the African Studies Center, and I will have a little bit of conversation with you, and then open it up to the audience for some question. I hope that's fine with you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Great, yes. So, Mr. Prime Minister, one of the things they've said about your country is that it's a small country with a very big voice in the international community. And we want to know how you've been able to use that voice to promote the interests of small countries in the world in the light of the global politics that, as you said in your speech, favors big nations or bigger economies.
Obrigado pela questão.
Thank you for the question. We must have a voice, we must have authority, we must have presence internationally, otherwise we don't exist. We are, if you're not known, you don't exist. Like Mars, we have to have a voice and a presence. And in terms of the international presence and the UN General Assembly, whether it's at the COPE events in Cape Verde as a small country, distinguishes itself not only by the population and by the territory, knowing because of our natural resources, we have stability, security, low level of corruption, and a high level of trust in our and confidence with our international partners, our development partners with the markets, so that we can have this presence. So our voice comes from stability, democracy, being good neighbors, and the confidence in the relationship with the other countries. And in terms of small island developing nations, we have a common cause because we have similar characteristics of vulnerability, and we make our voice present in all of the places where we are present.
Yes, thank you, Ms. The next question that comes is, in terms of balancing the developmental priorities of your nation, at the same time engaging in international negotiation, trade, finance, and other things, and even the climatic changes, how are you able, or small countries are able to bring a balance between their internal developmental needs and this engagement with the global economy in terms of negotiating for trade, finance, investment, climatic changes?
First of all, we have our point of view with regard to the external context. We integrate, we present challenges and opportunities, and we can have an ability to adjust and an orientation strategy, and we have partners and good allies. As I said, we are in the global economy, and no country can do, especially a small country, can't do this alone. And also good diplomacy based on reputation that can make the large countries listen to us and pay attention to our priorities. I'm talking about also the whole African continent. We must have our own voice, presence, and more a diplomatic presence in the best way, so that the solutions will be linked to development and be constructed so that we can influence, and tourists will come more and more, because in terms of commerce also will increase, and the environmental questions will be even better, and investments will come even more. And in diplomacy, you either have power, few have that power, other than United States and China and Europe maybe is in fourth place, and the others don't have this power to insist on their position at the table. So you have to generate the ability to have opportunities cooperating with those who have the power to insist on their positions.
Yes, thank you. From your speech and from what you've said, and looking at the history of economic development in Cabo Verde, there has been tremendous growth under your leadership also. And the issue now is how sustainable is that growth going forward? Like, what are the institutional changes that are being put in place and all that things so that even after your tenure, this remarkable growth that your country have seen, the increase in per capita GDP will continue into the future, given all the challenges that small economies face and also the climatic changes. What are the plans being put in place, given the resource constraint, everything, to ensure that the growth we've seen in Cabo Verde will be sustained going into the near future and even into the long future?
In terms of growing, economic growing?
Yes, economic growing and development, yes.
Yeah, development. Nós, no caso de Cabo Verde,
In the case of Cape Verde, I believe that it's the same challenge for small island developing states. Economic stability is very important. We must have conditions. As growth is happening, we have defined the stability, macroeconomic stability conditions in order to get good financing conditions as well. We depend on financing from abroad, whether it's through commerce. If we must also depend on financing and interest rates, that's very important. Second of all, the objective is to duplicate, to double our economic growth, and Cape Verde is well on the way to that. 2024 was 7.3% of growth. We want even more robust and consistent growth over time and reduce the exposure to economic shocks. And we have good partnerships because all of us have this challenge to guarantee that growth is sustainable and strong, that later it will have an impact on the conditions of poverty and creating employment. That is our final destiny. It will be the result of the economic growth that we are implementing and developing.
Yes, thank you. I would also like to learn more about, you already spoken a bit about the climatic change, the vulnerability, given your nation is an island country. So in what way is Cabo Verde thinking about integrating economic growth with the full recognition of the climatic changes that are going on in the world, so that instead of reacting to it, it becomes a source of growth for economies like you? How is the whole climatic changes and the vulnerability that we all see happen, especially as you spoke in Africa, desertification, dryness, flooding or so? How is that going to be taken advantage of so that it becomes, these changes become indeed a source of growth for African economies, and especially for Cabo Verde?
Reduzir as vulnerabilidade.
We are going to reduce the vulnerability. That's very essential. The level of economic dependency is very high in a country like Cape Verde. And African countries island nations have this especially, and we want to reduce the dependence on fossil fuels from abroad. We want to have sovereignty and independence and conditions to take advantage of the climatic situation. So in the case of Cape Verde, our energy transition is going to reduce the importation of fossil fuels. We're going to take advantage of sun, wind, and ocean to produce energy and reduce the impact of external shocks on our economy. Another factor, as I said, is the water. We are also helping our energy. On the African continent, we are very dependent on economies in terms of mineral and natural resources. And this dependence is one that generates little external value, especially because of the weak level in terms of these mineral resources, adding value for the countries in which they're located. There's not very much value added. The minerals and the natural resources are exported to then gain value. The problem of the African continent is this: there's a lot of dependence on one or two sectors and a dependence on resources with little added value inside of Africa. These are the great challenges we have today. And we must create economic models for development that over years and centuries with regard to Africa and the rest of the world.
Yes, thank you. That's a very brilliant response. I just have one more question for you, then I'll open it up to the audience. And if you want to speak, indicate, and there are people with the microphone, they will come to you. And it's only when you have the microphone that you should speak, because everything is being recorded, right? So, but you talked about African economies being too dependent on one or two sectors or minerals or so for growth, and that to be researched. So it prompts me to ask, what are the policies concerning, in this country we call it STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. What is your country doing to encourage investment in that kind of human resource development, especially for women, that bringing women into equality in the area of science, technology, and mathematics as foundational to the economic growth of African nations, especially for Cabo Verde, because your vision clearly says Africa should move forward, but it needs a certain scientific, technological base. How is that base being created today in your country, sir?
That's a very important factor, the human capital. It's an essential element of the transformation. In Cape Verde, we are working on a process to increase STEM from the very lowest levels of education in science, math, technology, where our youth will come out of school with strong abilities in all of these areas. And we are implementing that already. It has been going on for years. In two ways. First of all, we're introducing the English language much earlier in school. It's the language of global connection. And we have reformed that so that at 7 years old, the students begin studying English, and we're also increasing science, technology, math, of course, and Portuguese, which we must dominate well, for the youth to be more integrated in the global world we have today, and also professional training aimed at developing these competencies. And a clear option is the digital economy. We are working on that. We inaugurated a short time back 2 technological parks. We have 23 countries and several countries, 23 companies in many countries investing, and several European countries and the United States in cybersecurity, because it doesn't depend on natural resources or rain. It depends on talent and the right investment in order to serve the economies, all the economies in the world, through the competency that we create at the digital level. And we will develop entrepreneurship and startups, and all of the system is being facilitated for that to happen, to diversify the Cape Verdean economy. And these are well-paid jobs as well, because a great problem that Africa has is that there's a lot of informal employment, and formal employment has a lower level of pay. And then we have brain drain and the emigration of youth. So we want to have the ability to keep our talent and export the services to the world.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Your vision is very inspiring and encouraging, just hearing you speak and the vision. So now I would like to open it up to the audience, or so, and there are people with the microphone. They will come to you. Please, before you speak, make sure you have the microphone. State your name and your institutional affiliation, because all this is recorded, and we have just about 20 minutes for that conversation here.
Can you hear? Hi, my name is Kabir. I'm from the Pardee School. I'm a grad student. And my question for you is, the work you have done is commendable, but brain drain is a problem Cabo Verde is facing. And what steps is your government taking to tackle this problem and, mitigating its effects on the economy? Thank you.
Temos de facto esse
We do indeed have this problem, first of all, because Cape Verde is a country with many immigrants. We also we are part of the community of Portuguese-speaking countries which have free circulation, and that allows people to go to Portugal, and then they can go to other European countries. So that's easier to get a visa to leave Cape Verde, and that has caused a great movement of youth wanting to leave Cape Verde to go and have experiences in other countries at the same time. We are making the investments which are important and necessary to create a more attractive scenario for the youth to stay. And in Cape Verde, we will never keep people from leaving the country by laws. No imperative measures for people not to leave. So there is an easier way to have a visa to Portuguese-speaking countries. So we need to increase salaries. The salary can't pay more than it creates in terms of wealth. We need professional training, entrepreneurship, the ease of creating companies and startups, and create our own solution, life solutions for economic activity and employment for all. We are investing strongly in this area, and especially for women. We have an instrument which we call the Young Woman. It's for young women entrepreneurs, and they are the ones most using these financing with a low interest rate, guaranteed loans guaranteed by the government, and technical assistance for them to create their businesses. This is going to take time to create a strong flow in order to keep the talents in the country.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. The ushers. Okay, somebody has a microphone behind, and please ushers. There's somebody here after him. The gentleman on the second row. Yes. So you can ask your question, and he can also ask. So we take two questions then before the Prime Minister will respond.
Well, thank you very much, Prime Minister Ulisses Correia Silva. My name is Abel Jesse Amado. It's always great to come to BU. I also graduate from BU, so there's the direct connection here. And I am the Associate Professor of Politics and Policy at Siemens University, so not far from here. So it's still part of this great community of Boston. I have two direct and quick questions, if I'm allowed to do that. So, but I think it's very important to address these two important questions. And allow me to make the questions directly to Prime Minister Ulisses Correia Silva in the language that you did use in Portuguese. So, como disse antes, no início da sua conversa,
As you said earlier, one of the dangers which has affected the country and the world is what you said about the expansion of populism and extremism. We know that this has gotten in the way of the formation of a national conscience, and it has harmed confidence in the institutions. What has your government done, and your leadership in particular, in order to mitigate this danger? What are the places where the government has limited the effect in a deep way of the Cape Verdean population? Because we know there is extremism and populism in Cape Verde. For example, the debates in the social level. And my second question, which has to do with this, is that you spoke about the new development policy in Cape Verde and the partnership in these CDO, in the Economic Community of West African States. And I would like to know is about the institutional deficit in Cape Verde with regard to the West African communities, countries. Of the 54 protocols of CDO, Cape Verde has only implemented a part of that. And I think this is a clear signal that Cape Verde has this clear position with regard to CDEAO. And now we know that your government has invested very much in the involvement of the community of West African states. So what steps should be taken to deepen in a clear way the integration in a concrete way at the political level and at the economic level between Cape Verde and the other West African states? Thank you very much.
Yes, okay, can we give the mic to the second person then before the Prime Minister responds? Ushers, please. It's no. Let him. Then you be next after. Yeah, the response. Yes.
Ok, estou para no crioulo, na inglês também ao mesmo tempo. Meu nome é Manuel de Luís Gonçalves. My name is Manuel de Luís Gonçalves. I'm ex-alumni from Boston University. We're glad to be here with you. A mim também é autor de dois dicionários, dicionário crioulo-inglês e inglês-crioulo. I'm the author of the Cape Verdean Dictionary, Creole to English and English to Creole. So that's the language that our native language of Cape Verde. Of course, Portuguese is the official language, but Creole, along with Portuguese, is also one of the language, the music, the culture, and so forth. I have three questions. One is if you could give us a brief update on São Vicente devastation by the Hurricane Aaron this last few months. So what's going to happen to São Vicente from now on? Quanto tempo que está levar para reconstruir São Vicente? Por causa daquele furacão ou temporal que fazia lá. Segundo, a questão é pesca. Não sabemos, a União Europeia está tomar conta de nosso mar e que benefício que nossa população tem sobre essa pesca. The fishing, Europe, the most part Europe, Japan is on our seas, fishing. And what's the benefits for the Caverian population? We have to have, back and forth, the exchange. The other thing, the third question is the problem of electricity, especially in Praia, the few days, the few months, people, the entire city of Praia having problems with electricity. There's no electricity. And, of course, we have all these potential energies, the sol, sun, the ocean, the sea, oceano, mar, and the wind, vento. I know it's for future projection, but right now, what are we going to do with Praia, the capital city of Cabo Verde? Because, people are really suffering due to this energy cuts in Cabo Verde. Obrigado.
Yeah, thank you. So,
Obrigado. Duas questões feitas por.
Thank you for all the questions asked by Cape Verdeans. I will address first the expansion of populism and extremism. That is something that is happening globally. It's happening in Europe, in the US, in some other countries in Latin America. It's a global movement, and it has common roots, and a government to combat that must have a social and political pact in their countries. And these are movements that use democracy to aim for power. And these questions have to do with social issues, migration, security issues. In other countries, these have to do with poverty. There are easy solutions that one pays for later. All of that exists. We have a debate in Parliament. First of all, the political parties will be the first to create conditions to protect ourselves from these movements. Second of all, to have a social impact with that which will strengthen democracy, which we must use. We must support democracy, and we can't let these movements reach extremes, but we also can't prevent them from existing. If they work in democracies, it has its own ideology, and it guarantees and so the battling them has to be a political battle. It's a social one so that these movements don't gain too much power. With regard to CEDEAO, the Community of West African States, it was created as an economic community It's a relationship among West African states. We have a commercial relationship with the African continent of only about 2 or 3%. Because it's not because Cape Verde doesn't want a better, more expanded relationship, it's that there are several barriers. They're not tariffs, but there are administrative and corruption barriers, problems with the functioning of institutions, and there are situations which make it difficult to exercise the stronger economic activity among the African states. And we continue to want to expand that. All of the protocols are not yet ratified, but the court in Cape Verde, the justice system is looking at questions that affect our own sovereignty, which of course we must protect. With regard to São Vicente, in fact, Cape Verde normally, in terms of its geographical location, is where the hurricanes that go to the US and Caribbean and Bermudas form and grow. Normally, they don't actually hit Cape Verde, but in August of this year, we did get a hurricane. Rains that usually happen in 1 year happened in 4 hours. And it caused floods, 9 deaths, a lot of destruction of infrastructure in business and for commerce and agriculture, and for fishing, of homes which were destroyed. These are things that happen every 100 years. I spoke with someone who was 91 years old who had never seen that. And it happened in August. And these are environmental changes which will tend to happen with more regularity. We took a few protection measures. The families, when we had deaths in families, we have provided the families of the deceased with income from the government. People who lost their homes, we put them in social housing. Those who lived in very vulnerable shacks now live in good houses and apartments. We have provided them already for more than 100 families, and the greatest harm was to business. Small businesses, from informal businesses, people who have commercial establishments, to in agriculture and fishing and industry. They had stocks and facilities which were damaged, and we did a program to compensate income for these people and lines of credit to help them refinance, to start to normalize. And there were about 100 vehicles that ended up in the ocean. These were personal vehicles and also vehicles used for public transportation, for example, and we're developing a program to compensate these losses. Then the state will compensate those who lost what they needed to carry on their business. And in terms of infrastructure, highways, urban infrastructure, which was destroyed. And in the infrastructure, we had about 4 million euros, a little more than that in dollars, to replace in that in San Vicente and two other areas which were hit by the hurricane. And we're doing an investment to replace that. And there's an investment in structure for the future to make São Vicente much more resistant to these kinds of weather impacts. We're investing over $400 million to drain rainwater to protect an island and a city, because São Vicente, they say we have all the different kinds of rivers. Everything is river this, river that, and the city was built on top of the rivers. And when we have these extreme phenomena, the water goes along its path of the rivers and creates all of the havoc. So for all these rivers, it's going to take a lot of water to manage the flow, a lot of money to manage the flow of water. And we have to define exactly what we need to do and get the resources, the funding in the long term to provide these more structural solutions. What we're stabilizing now what was going on for a month, almost an elimination at this point. We're investigating exactly what happened with regard to this subject. And the structural solution is to have more renewable energy and reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. That takes time. In 2030, we will get to 30%, 50%, then we go by 2040 to 80%, and guarantee that we have electricity getting to people's homes from renewable energy. And right now we have about 50% of families with energy from renewable sources. On the African continent, that level is very low. We want this to be something which is regular and of high quality.
Yeah, thank you. That was very informative. We have time for one more question. I would take it from from you, and that will be the last question because of our time constraint here.
Thank you very much. I'm Brazilian, so I will, use our beautiful Portuguese language to speak. Muito obrigada pela sua aula.
Thank you for your lecture, Excellency. I work in the GDP Center, and I'm an economist looking at financial stability, which you mentioned very clearly, the importance of having a strong and stable economy. One of the things that you mentioned was the role of financing the concessions or utilities. It's very important for Cape Verde to increase their per capita income. My first question is how to navigate this moment in which the utilities are not as abundant as they should be. These are economies which are growing, and how to navigate the macroeconomic stability. Second question, you talk about external shocks like the pandemic and climate shocks, or macroeconomic shocks, the increase in the interest rate in the US, for example, what the international financial institutions like the World Bank or the IMF can do better to help economies like the Cape Verdean economy. Thank you very much.
Obrigado pela questão.
Thank you for your question.
Marina do Brasil.
Marina of Brazil, with regard to financing for utilities. In the case of Cape Verde, when we became a middle income country, we were able to maintain the amount of concessions or utilities more or less. Now, with the increase, we have gone back to discussing this topic in order to guarantee that the growth, the transformation doesn't increase the cost of utilities. This is the work that's being done with regard to the island nations. And we have a multidimensional approach, not only our GDP, but the environmental, economic, and climate vulnerability. And based on that, we will increase and by reducing the vulnerability and these things will bring us gains. We have examples of other small countries. We have 10 islands, 9 inhabited islands, and all of them need connectivity. They have to have airports. They have to have ports. To do that, to be connected to the global economy, you need international airports. So you can't have just one, you have one international airport. So it's as expensive to do an international airport in a small country as in a big country, at least the bare minimum. And sometimes when you analyze GDP, you have an investment which is, the comparison of the size of the population and the investment, and they want to cut out the small country. We have this example on Boa Vista, which is a small island with a small population, and the fact that it has an international airport brought tourism, and it's the island that is the greatest level of tourism. Luckily for Cape Verde, we have a good relationship with IMF, World Bank, guaranteeing the continuation of all of this. On the other hand, we are looking at private-public partnerships to continue the investment. We have an airport concession with Avanci, which is one of the largest airport companies in the world, and it does investments, and it builds airports, and then, of course, there is an income from the airports. This is the perspective that we have so that we can have a mix of financing, not exclusively directed towards a company or a government. The IMF, what they could do better, and the other institutions as well. We have debated this a lot in the UN and in the COP meeting summit. We need a fund for loss and damage, and we used to repair São Vicente, for example, after the hurricane that hit there. With the international financing, it helps, but if it stops, then the impact will stop, and this is essential for us.
Yes, thank you. We've almost come to the end of the program, and I sincerely thank you for that. First of all, for your brilliant lecture and the way you've responded to all the questions in a very informative, friendly way. So we will thank you for your presence and for blessing us with your knowledge. Also, I'm sure the GDP Center is very happy. You provided more than what we expected in starting this program. So we really want to thank you, the African Studies Center, and also the Pardee School. And I would like to thank the Cabo Verde community, the distinguished diplomats of the year, and also the president of Boston University, Professor Gilliam, for our attention and for giving us this opportunity to come. I thank everyone, the students, everyone that has showed up. At this point in time, I would like us, in appreciation of what we've received from from the Prime Minister Correia Silva, let us give him a round of applause.